Wherever you guys are in the world. Thank you for being here with me. I'm hoping that you loved yesterday's teaching training. Let me put that down. There we go. Great. Um, Thank you so much for being here live with me today. I know that it can be hard to be live every day, or get here live every day. So thank you for those of you that can. Again, if you can't, there's always the replay, no problem. So today we're going to talk about why your body is a spiritual powerhouse, and that not only is it not spiritual to detach from your body, but it will impact the life that you can create. Okay. So, and Rachel made me laugh this morning because she said, this one will be a good one for a recovering Catholic. And I think that's very, very true. So there's been so many spiritual traditions. I mean, so many, I can't even, it's probably in the thousands, probably even more spiritual traditions where people were taught to essentially hate their bodies, that their bodies were sort of low frequency, that our bodies are sinful or bad, that any feeling of desire in our body is a negative thing. And because of that, I mean, there's so many traditions that are about denial of our physical being, right? And I was going to say on paper that sounds good, but it really doesn't. But but we'll go with it. On paper, I suppose, in some ways, that could sound good in terms of, well, if you're thinking that your spirit, you're looking for enlightenment, you're looking for up-leveling your spirit, you're looking for that next spiritual level of whatever kind, then you can, viewing it that way, as seeing your spirit as something separate from your body, as something that is more, airy and enlightened and all of that than your body, you could make the case that your body is holding you back, kind of, in a way, right? That how can you ever truly experience enlightenment on a spiritual plane if you are caught in your body, right? I understand where the thinking came from because of that. Again, if you view these things as separate from one another, then sure, it could seem like our little 3D experience here is in some way holding us back from whatever enlightenment. I would disagree with this. Science actually disagrees with this. Certainly quantum physics disagrees with this. So like anything, the path to enlightenment is rarely straight. And so for a long time, I feel like science and spirituality were looked at very suspiciously of each other. I think they still are in some ways. Thankfully, there's a lot of really good teachers, leaders, philosophers, scientists, and others that are really understanding and bringing together these two things, and that is fantastic. But I think for a long time they were very suspicious of each other. I would argue that the two meld together beautifully when we actually look at all of this from the perspective that we've been looking at it so far, from this sort of combination of energy and sort of where quantum physics comes in. Okay, so let's think about it this way. If we've talked about the fact that you're essentially kind of like a flowing U hologram that is a combination of all the wave frequencies of everything that you believe consciously and subconsciously, of the actions that you're taking on a day-to-day basis, those have frequency, of the thoughts that you think both about yourself and other people and the world, of the expectations that you have set consciously and unconsciously. So we are, as we talked about, we really are sort of this waving oneness. Part of that waving oneness is our body. Our spirit is not separate from our body. It is inherently connected to and part of it, right? So if we go back to the idea of the quantum potential and that everything is actually flowing oneness, and nothing can be separate from another, no matter the perspective that we have, because when we open our eyes, there goes our particle detectors and everything pops into being, then that means that our bodies cannot be separate from our spirits. It cannot be separate from that. Aside from that, if we think about all of these experiences in life that we are experiencing, whether it's going to the mall to go pick something up, buy something, whether it's chatting with your best friend, whatever it is, how would you be able to experience it if you were only a spirit? How? And this actually goes to a conversation that my daughter and I were having last night as she was falling asleep. Like a lot of kids that are inquisitive kids, they're processed a lot during the day, and then you get them in bed and you're reading, or you're thinking about reading. It took us a half an hour to even get to reading, but and that's when all the questions come up, right? And last night she started asking, well, if when I go to sleep, I'm like a flowing wave frequency in myself, like how do I then wake up and have a body, and what does that look like, right? And I'm trying to explain this to my 7-year-old, and those are really good questions, right? Because I think for a lot of us, it is the question, like, how does our body basically come back into being? But also, what part of it is spiritual? And as I say, I would argue that it's all spiritual. Sorry, I just had a pop-up come up on me there. So the thing is, if we did not have our physical bodies, we would only be floating around as like some flowing oneness, right? We wouldn't experience any of this. The key to our manifestation and why we want to manifest the things we do in our life is because they bring us pleasure and joy and happiness and whatever other feelings they might have. So what I want you to think about is, let's say your favorite thing in the world is an ice cream cone, right? If you did not have your tongue, your taste buds, and your nose to be able to experience the taste of that, which is just a frequency of, let's say, chocolate ice cream, then there would be no pleasure to it. There would be no joy to it. So we're all making these decisions, the quest to be able to change our life, to be able to shift things at the spiritual level. But the reason we're doing it is because we want to be able to experience the outcome of these changes. And the only way to experience the outcome of those changes is to be in our physical bodies, right? When I had set my intention and knew in my heart that we were meant to adopt a child, if I wasn't in my body when we adopted that child, how do I hold her and feel her and talk to her? How do I vocalize my love for her? How is that possible if we aren't in our bodies? It's not. So instead of hating our bodies at some level or detaching from them at some level, we need to look at them as what they are, which they are tools to not only help us manifest more and to keep us aware of the path that we're supposed to take. That's where we'll get our mental hit of intuition, but we'll also get a physical hit of intuition that'll say, go this way, or do this thing, or this isn't the right path, or something's going wrong here, right? You'll feel that in your stomach. Those two things are working together. Our intuition is working with our neural pathways, is working with our stomach, which, by the way, the stomach has, I think they just found that it has as much or more neural pathways than the brain. So they're now calling the stomach our second brain. So for those of us that are intuitive, and everyone's intuitive, some are just a little more aware of it than others, when you get that gut hit, that is your intuition, the frequency, your mental state, and it's sending that signal, and that signal is being processed and experienced by you as a physical sensation in your body, right? So you wouldn't be able to have that if we didn't have this intense, beautiful, spiritual connection between our bodies and our minds. Hang on one second, I think, raise hand. Let me see. Let me see. 1 second. Andrea, I'll be right to you. 1 second. We'll go. Let me see if I can. Andrea, if you can see in the Q&A, I see that you've raised your hand. Can you write in the Q&A your question? Because I'm not sure if I can. I'm not sure if I can let you on to ask the question. So if you can write, if you have a question or a comment, please put it in the Q&A or in the chat, and I will take a look at it and answer it for you. Okay, so this is where we have to really, really start honoring the tools that are allowing us to experience this life. What would be the point of our spirits being here in this 3D world if we weren't intended to experience the full gamut of human emotions? What would be the point of us having bodies, right? It's great. Like if you're in spirit, that's fine. And that it'd just be like the flowing form of you floating around as part of the oneness, but you wouldn't have the ability to actually create in this spiritual and physical world. And I believe deeply with every fiber of my being that the source, whatever you call the source, has given us the free will of our minds and the ability to radically change the outcome of our lives or make choices that change not only our lives, but the lives, the collective unconscious, because whatever the source is, this quantum potential, it wants us to be able to experience these things. It wants us to thrive. I know there are bad things in the world. I know. And that's why I'm doing all this work to hopefully keep lifting everybody up. But I have seen over and over again that when we shift, the people I work with, the healing work I do, when we're able to get to that core level and shift, you will have a radical change in everything, and that includes your physical being. Okay, so as I say, when we're walking around in the world and we're experiencing all of these frequencies, your brain is helping you to sort through them, right? Your physical brain is helping you to sort through them, right? And so when you think about the fact that you have that as the ability to be able, and actually, you know what, I'm going to ask you guys, what are your favorite things to experience in this world physically? What are the things that bring you the most joy? And honestly, there are things. I swear, when I was in Paris, there were a couple times we had food, and I was like, "That is a spiritual experience right there." Like that right there. There was a piece of chocolate we had at this chocolatier that I was like, "Okay, all right, I have just elevated myself in that moment in time," right? And that's very possible for us, right? And I think for a lot of us, we don't take the time to be in awe of the fact that we are inside bodies that can breathe, that can experience joy and pleasure and sadness and anger and literally everything in the entire world, that can experience holding the hand of your little one, walking her into school like I did yesterday, feeling her tiny little hand in my hand and walking her into her new school. That's a spiritual experience in a physical form. So I want you to start shifting your thought process around your body and literally start paying attention to the fact that every single thing you are experiencing right now in the physical form is a spiritual experience becoming physical. You are not disconnected from your spirit when you experience things physically. You are not negating or holding back your spirit when you experience things physically. Rather, I would argue, the more fully that you are present, the more fully you experience the physical moments in your life, especially moments that are just completely wonderful and amazing moments that you want to be there for fully and presently. The more that you do that, the more you are, in fact, not only experiencing things as a spiritual being, but you are in a place where you can most powerfully manifest, because you are pulling all of you together. You are honoring all of you as one life-creating, co-creating being. So I'd like you today, one of the things I'd like you to do today, bring your awareness to what you are physically feeling from moment to moment. Okay. So when you are sitting down, let's say you sit down to have a meal, one of the ways to help yourself pull this together and be very present in that moment is to really focus on whether it's you're creating the meal or you've ordered the meal or whatever it is. Each bite, and this is where like people talk about mindful eating. Each bite, what's the texture that you feel? You couldn't feel that texture without your tongue and your mouth and all the taste buds. What is the taste? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What about it is appealing to you? How does it feel as it goes into your body? Is it satisfying? I mean, there's times, I don't know about you guys, but there are times when, maybe you've got a lot going on. And I tend to be a person who's moving a lot. And there are times where I'm like, I need some grounding food right now, like a stew. I need something warm. I need it to go into my belly and I want to feel that physical sense that, okay, I'm being a little bit grounded right now because I've been doing too much, oftentimes when I'm sort of doing too many things at once, right? I don't know if anybody else has that experience, but when we disconnect, watching my little girl growing up, for instance, as children, as babies, we come into this world and I feel like we are most fully aware, not only of spirit, but of our power and our innate wonder of the fact we're in these like particle filled bodies, and somehow by some miracle our spirit came into this particular place in this particular time. And I watch my daughter, and there's this childlike wonder. She's one of those, like, she's very enthusiastic about new things that she learns. And even as a little like toddler, I'd go push her in her stroller and we'd be walking along, and we have this like community herb garden where we're at. And so I would pick like a piece of sage and she would taste it, and I would watch her face like, oh, what is this? This is cool. And like mint, and it's that as we become adults, we lose that wonder that what we're creating is pretty darn awesome for us to experience. And the more we can rekindle that childlike wonder, that childlike expectation, that not only is there going to be new experiences for us as physical beings, but they're going to be awesome. Like, we're going to learn something, we're going to experiencing something totally new. The more we can do that, and I think in your heart of hearts, you could know that frequency that you send out, is that going to be a better frequency that's going to tune you into better, more awesome experiences? I mean, it is. It's better than when we look at it and go, oh, our bodies, and I wish I was this and I wish I was that. So that takes me to the next thing, which is, for a lot of us, we pick ourselves apart on a physical level, right? And it can be something that is super ingrained. In my experience, it can be something that is quite generational in nature, where beliefs around body size, for good and for bad, can be, or body, whatever it is, for good and for bad, can be passed down generationally, right? And so we end up taking on an unconscious level. Next week, we're going to talk about how to like completely turn off some of these unconscious things we've taken on and where we took them in from. But we can, on an unconscious level, we just absorb all of that. So as kids, we believe a lot of things about our bodies that aren't true, right? And aren't for our best. Like, you can, especially as you get a little bit older, and people like body size. Lord, I remember when Britney Spears, like a few years ago, I think she went from like a size 4 to a size 8, and everyone was like, oh, she's gigantic. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with people? Like, I mean, you can't, there's like, anyways, it's insane. So we take that in too. I can remember being a kid and being afraid, excuse me, my mom is heavier. And she had people who were not nice to her about that. And I can remember being a kid and fearing that if I got larger, people would not be nice to me either, right? And so that created a disordered experience in my own body as well, right? And that's what happens. So I want to go to the fact that when we send hatred or judgment against our own bodies for whatever reason. And again, you easily could have taken in quite a bit of it from whatever religious experience you were brought up in. Some churches are really brutal about it, and it becomes definitely something that you block a lot of things. One thing I want to talk about in specific is blocking pleasure in your life. So there's so many hangups within our religious structures around the sense of the idea of pleasure in our bodies, right? And that certainly goes right to the point of sex. And that becomes like this big, huge thing for a lot of people. I've worked personally with tons of people on my personal sessions where they were detached for a lot of different reasons from this aspect of themselves where pleasure is seen as part of your human experience and good, okay? And the problem is, and I want for anybody who has had that experience and that upbringing, first off, there's nothing wrong with you. It's unfortunately incredibly normal because of a lot of our particular religious institutions, the way they view that. So starting there, nothing wrong with you. But I do want to tell you that when we block the energy of pleasure in one way, we inherently block the energy of pleasure in all ways, okay? Because you can't really block one concept without it impacting that concept in all areas of your life, right? So when we detach from that, our pleasure centers in our bodies, and that is whatever pleasure centers, not just sexual, are bad or sinful, and that we don't deserve to have good, what it ends up being is we don't deserve to have good joy and pleasure in our lives, okay? I can't tell you the number of people who have come to me and they're like working on creating something, and there's this blockage. And that blockage ends up being station 2. So for those of you that have already taken your flow factor test, if you've got a station 2 that shows up, this can be a component of why things aren't manifesting more quickly for you. Because how do you call in things that are going to make you, that are like self-care, like self-care? Maybe you want to have a luxury trip where you get tons of wonderful self-care. How do you call that in if you innately don't believe that you deserve pleasure in your body, right? Those two things, those two frequencies, they cancel each other out. Can't happen. So as you go forward today, I want you to, number one, please bring your awareness throughout your day today to your physical experience at as many moments as you possibly can, and take a moment in your mind, or even saying it out loud, to say, I am so grateful that I get to have this physical experience in my body, or that I get to have this, I am a spirit experiencing this physical experience. I am so grateful that my choices have brought me to this moment. I am so grateful for this food that I have, okay? And the second thing is, I'd like you to look at and maybe journal about the concept of pleasure and how you view it, okay? Because that is one thing that we are going to continue to work on throughout this, because it becomes such an important concept that's either going to help you align and allow things to come in, or it really causes blockages. It can cause blockages also on things like money coming into you, right? Because money coming into you is pleasurable, right? You feel supported, you feel good, you feel joyful. And it's like, do I deserve it? There can be this whole like, am I allowed to enjoy money? Am I allowed to make it pleasurable and fun? That can be all tied in there. And that's also a station 2. Income, I do this station 2, meaning like a little round, a chakra kind of. That's also a station 2 issue, because that is around, can you allow the pleasure of income to come to you? Is that something you can allow? Okay. So if you have had a lot of situations where you feel that you have the experience of not having things come into you in the ways that you desire, I want you to see, where is this concept for you? What were you taught? What did authority figures teach you about your right to experience pleasure in this world? Your right to claim things that make you just happy and joyful, okay? And so if you can, please pay attention to that. You can post in the group and we will support anything you have in helping you to shift any of those things as well. So please let me know. This is an area that I feel very passionately about shifting. I mean, I'm not going to tell you I wasn't blocked here too, because I was like, and do I still have to revisit it? Yeah. These beliefs can run real deep, you know, and even in the work I do, I still encounter people that are inherently against, you know, the pleasures of anything, not just the pleasure, just pleasure in general is like anti-spiritual. But again, why would we be popping into being as the beings we are, with brains that can make choices and with minds that can change things and with bodies that can experience things, if we weren't supposed to experience them? What would be the point? You know, we're just supposed to walk around in suffering? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why would that doesn't make any sense. So I'd like you to start paying attention today to those things, to how your physical being is, bringing yourself into the present moment, being grateful that you have eyes that can see beauty, and you have a nose that can smell flowers, and you have ears that can hear the giggle of your child, and you have a body that can hug and love and feel. These things are miracles, you guys. They're miracles. We can't experience any of that if we're in the spiritual form. We can't. So we have to bring radical love to our bodies and see them for what they are, which are the tools that we can use not only to experience the wonder of life, manifestation of our desires, but also to help us to create more of it as we stay more in the present moment, as we work with pleasure, as we work with our feelings of joy and abundance and passion. Okay, so observe, be grateful for what you have, journal on your feelings about pleasure, your ability to deserve pleasure, beliefs that you had that you maybe picked up, where you picked them from. Okay, let's just start bringing that awareness to this. And next week, we're going to really work on clearing that out. And the week after, we're starting right into the flow method. So we'll be digging deep into your flow factor results and creating that personalized game plan for you, a transformation plan for you. All right, thank you. Oh, wait, Rachel said something here. Hang on, we have a chat. A spiritual teacher told me the best way to manifest money is to really visualize it while orgasming. You know what? It's probably right. You know what I mean? Because what is that? That's pleasure. It's pleasure. It's creation. Hey, Livia, sending love to you too, beautiful. La 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 la. Okay, just making sure. I will, if I missed any live comments in the group, I'll pop in and do that. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please post in the group. Let me know what your reaction is to the training, to this. Is there something you'd like more of? Is there something you'd like less of? Are there tools that could be more helpful to you? I'd love to hear all of that. So thank you so much for being here, you guys. For today, bring your awareness to all of that and let me know how that goes. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a little more implementation of like very direct implementation into your day-to-day life of the things that we've learned so far in the academy. Okay. Talk to you guys then. Have a